Hey there, Psychonauts. Today is going to be a continuation of my 700 microgram LSD trip report. If you haven't seen the first video, you can check that one out. I'll put it down below. But hello, I'm happy you're with me today. I described this experience as the peak experience of my life. So for today's video and continuation of the trip report, we're going to start right around that peak and some of the things that were occurring during the peak of the peak experience of my life, and also get into a little bit about what happens after the peak and the morning after and the day after. I do some adventuring, as I mentioned. So let's get into it. What is happening to me during this peak experience of my life? So something distinct that begins to occur, and I think I start to feel it emerging during that peak experience, and it's something that follows me along for the rest of the experience, and that is an experience with Kundalini. Now, I've never had a direct experience that I've associated with Kundalini in the past, and this is the first time I had an experience that I made that association, and it was very distinct. And I'm slightly familiar with the whole concept of Kundalini, and since having the experience, I've been researching it a little bit more, but I also didn't want to research it too much just because I was afraid my mind might try to morph that direct experience that I had into aligning with these new expectations that I'm creating by researching it more. Maybe maybe I shouldn't really worry about it. I am going to research it more, but for the purpose of today's video, I just wanted to tell you that raw, direct, phenomenological experience. What was actually happening, and why did I associate this with the Kundalini experience? So, during this peak experience, oh my God. So during this entire experience, starting mainly sometime around the peak and continuing afterwards, I felt some sort of divine energy moving through me. And the distinctive characteristics of this energy that made me associate it with Kundalini was that it was distinctly feminine in nature, and it also distinctly snake-like. I could feel that serpent connection, and it was very obvious that there was a connection with this snake. It's very strange. This really brings us into some trippy territory, but I'm gonna try my best to explain this. So I'd feel this energy, and it definitely has to do with the hip movement that I had been talking about. And it's definitely this energy, and in this way, it does move up to the spine and up, okay? So this is how Kundalini is described, and this is how I was experiencing it. I would feel this energy that would make me move my hips, and it would also, like, I would straighten myself and kind of like reach up to the sky. And I continued to do this throughout the entire experience, and I felt that I was in connection with something. I felt I was in communion with some divine force. And yeah, I'll probably talk about this more at some other points, but I did want to put that out there, that I had this very distinct Kundalini experience, which also reminds me, in this peak state, I was getting that familiar feeling of remembering, of waking up from the illusion that is your life. You wake up from the dream of life. You wake up from the play of life. And it did make me think of Hinduism. I do like Hinduism. I don't know how much I've talked about it on this channel, but I do agree that it is the purest form of spirituality, and a lot of my own philosophical beliefs really align with Hinduism. So anyway, I was thinking about that. And another thing that this led me into, this feeling of waking up from the dream that is my life, and I've had this experience before. I've had this experience of merging with that universal consciousness, that universal God mind, in a sense, and being in that state. And reality is something very peculiar. It's a lot of things. It's a dream, it's an illusion, it's a play. But another thing that I was thinking of is it's a story. It's a narrative. And it was a very strange experience. I started to get this realization that my life it wasn't just a dream. It wasn't just a simulation or an illusion. It wasn't just a game. It wasn't just a play. It was very distinctly a story. More specifically, it was a story written by this higher dimensional version of myself. I also wrote something down, and I don't even have it in front of me, but I'm going to try to describe it to you. Okay, so I did actually find it, and I'll tell you. I said, it's kind of like I'm God, and it's all just the recalling of a memory. But there was never any ground. It's always been a creation of mind. Reality is the recalling of a memory. That is, it's a story we tell ourselves. So this is just some of the thoughts that I was putting together on the nature of reality. You get to these points in these experiences, and I don't think I'm alone in this. I know it doesn't happen for everybody, but the whole fundamental nature of reality seems to unfold in front of you. And that was what I was experiencing, and I was having this very spiritual experience with it. Reality is far stranger than we think it is. I don't know what reality is, and I'm dead serious when I say that I don't know what it is. I don't know its true nature. I think it's far stranger than we can imagine, and I don't think people, maybe it's because it's not very practical of a thought to have, but I think reality is far different than any sort of common perception of it. You know, from religion to science. I think we're on to a lot of things, but I still think we haven't even gotten close to uncovering that fundamental nature. I don't know. Maybe I'm going on too much about this. Another thing I did say is that reality is created out of the expectations. That was another thing that I felt. And I actually first had this thought with my last mushroom experience, that the next step of reality is created by the expectations. And it's not just your own expectations, although your own expectations can influence reality, but it's kind of like the collective expectations of everybody, and that's what creates this reality. Anyway, reality is not merely what materialism would have you believe. And it's not just materialism, but reality is not what reality would have you believe it is. That's something. But it's created out of the expectations. The question is, though, who creates the expectations? Who creates them? I don't know. It's the whole thing is almost, I mean, you guys know this. You can't talk about it. The way that it's set up, it cannot be talked about. You can only point at it. You can only look at it from all these different angles, but you can't directly speak of this experience. And the closer I get to trying to directly speak on it, the closer I think I sound to insanity. So I try to walk carefully along that line. But let's get into another theme of the experience, and this started happening a little bit after the peak, and that was an alien contact experience. Now, this wasn't as distinct of an alien contact experience as I would have on mushrooms or maybe DMT. But I still had this very distinct communication pathway with some sort of interdimensional aliens. This was occurring. Now, I mentioned I was probably going to try to compare alien experiences on LSD versus mushrooms, and I still will. But let me tell you what happened in this experience. So it's very hard to describe the alien experience with LSD, and I'm going to try my best, so bear with me. It feels like I start to become in communication with some sort of interdimensional aliens. Now, they feel very distinctly interdimensional at this point. Like, reality is existing on all these dimensional levels, and it's almost like the dimensions are colliding in some way. It feels like they're trying to communicate something. We're in this sort of reality in which we perceive it as playing out very linearly, but that's not the true nature. That's just how we perceive it. I don't know, it's like almost like the aliens are trying to communicate with us something that's happening. They're trying to communicate that they're coming in a way. Or they're trying to communicate that this is something that is happening. Like they already know it's already happened. But the communication process still has to play out. I don't know. Do you follow me? I did feel distinctly that specifically me had some sort of more intimate connection with these aliens. At some point, now I know this sounds insane, I was considering the idea of being some sort of alien myself. And I know this sounds completely off the wall, but you're gonna just have to stay with me, okay? Or maybe that I wasn't even just an alien, or that I was some sort of like, I don't know, like the aliens are interdimensional. I don't know, like on this reality, I'm not an alien. And I don't actually hold this belief that I'm an alien. I don't hold this belief, just to warn you, I don't. But it was really weird. It was almost like I was connected with them. It was almost like I was one of them. At least in part. That maybe I'm like partially alien. And it's all like it's all interdimensional. So it's like there's this reality that exists in these like 3 dimensions. But it's all connected with this larger, higher dimensional reality. And this is where the aliens are. I don't know. I think it's really weird. It goes back to this theme of it. It's all happening. It's kind of already all happening. And these aliens, I'm just supposed to communicate this message that it's happening. The aliens are coming. I don't know if we are becoming the aliens or they're coming here. Like I told you, I don't know what reality is. It's far too complicated for my little ape brain to comprehend, but something is happening. I really think that there's something happening with aliens. I genuinely do think that there's something happening. I just don't know what. I just don't know enough to say, and I'm not going to try to tell you what is happening because I don't know, but there is some sort of alien connection that psychedelics open you up to. And I think that's all I'll say on that. Okay, so I want to move on to a little bit of the come down of the experience and the morning after. At some point, I did do some resting, just laying down in bed and not sleeping, obviously, but just laying down with my eyes closed. So I spent a few hours laying in the bed, resting, and I don't know, this whole experience, I felt my body healing itself. And I think in these moments, these few hours that I took to rest before the sun came up, I really could feel my body trying to heal itself. I felt like I was opening pathways to natural healing, that I was opening these pathways in my mind. Or then again, I feel like it has some sort of higher dimensional or spiritual connection as well. But I felt like I was so open to healing in this experience, and I felt those gears turning. I just felt the processes occurring, and I felt that I was being led the way, that I was being shown how I was going to heal myself. So after some moments of rest, and I'm not sure what all I was doing, probably a lot of contemplation, but I very naturally decided to get up with the sunrise, and I went out in the morning for the sunrise. I was alone, and I'm not a big practicer of yoga by any means, but I do my own sort of movements. I was a dancer, I was a gymnast, so I know how to move my body. But I got out there with the morning sun, and I had this very divine experience. I had just experienced a rebirth, and it was now morning, and I felt so connected with Source. I felt so connected with just like the fundamental life force of the universe. I don't know how to describe it. I think it also has to do with the Kundalini experience. But I got up in the morning and I just started doing yoga on instinct. I just started moving my body in the ways that it felt like I needed to move it. I was just doing all sorts of stretching and it just felt so beautiful. Again, it was also my birthday, so it just really tied in nicely. It was the perfect, I wouldn't say conclusion because the experience was still going and I was still feeling the effects, but the main part of the trip had concluded and it was just such a revival of everything. It was a revival of mind, body, and soul. It was everything. So after doing some yoga that morning, I did end up also going on a walk in the morning. Another thing I needed to tell you. So at this point, the morning after, so we're probably like 12 hours in at this point. Let's just say around that. Well, the walk was before that. I think the walk was about 7 a.m. I had not eaten at all yet. So I ate the afternoon before I tripped. Or maybe it was the evening, afternoon or early evening. But I ate pretty light that day in general, and I didn't eat at all. I didn't eat at all this entire day after, so I fasted the entire day. I went over 24 hours. I think I went close to 36 hours, not eating anything. I have done that before, though. I won't get too into the specifics. But yeah, I took a morning walk, and then most of the rest of the morning was spent, well, I spent a lot of it dancing. My cat is scratching at the door. I am determined to tell this story. So the next thing on the agenda is I have some adventuring to do. I have a float trip planned. I will be taking a canoe down the river with my partner. So yeah, we got ready for that. But here's another interesting part of the experience. So getting in, when we check into our float trip and we're getting ready, and we have to ride a school bus with a whole bunch of other people to get to the put-in for the float. And this was such an amazing experience for me because we were kind of there. The only other people there, it was a bunch of families. And maybe normally that wouldn't be as much my vibe, but I honestly loved it so much. I was on the school bus and it was a packed full school bus. Like it was packed way too full. All the seats plus more were taken up and it was all families, like all ages. They're all just talking and it was like a 30-minute or maybe it was 20-minute drive. I still had no perception of time at this point. I was all very much still like in this here and nowness perspective. So the time really didn't faze me that much. I was kind of just like, it was all still just the here and now. I don't know. I was on this school bus and it was really funny to me because to me, I was on the Magical Mystery Tour still. I'm on the Magical Mystery Tour and it was so fun because it's kind of fun just like having the experience that I did and having, not to toot my own horn, but like having the awareness of reality on so many levels and like knowing, you know, pretty much everybody on this school bus is completely unaware of the things that I am. I feel like that sounds strange, but maybe you get what I'm saying. I don't know. I really enjoyed the ride. You know, I was on my own little Magical Mystery Tour and I was just listening to all these people and I was having the time of my life in an environment that I wouldn't normally have the time of my life on. I just was so interested in like observing all the conversations and the interactions between the kids and the old people. And it was just so much fun. Just seeing life in action, seeing this whole thing. I just felt so, I don't know, in a way, I felt very connected with them too. Like they're the same process of me as me, just playing itself out. And it was a really beautiful, an unexpectedly beautiful experience. But we did end up getting to the river. We got on the river. It was beautiful. I shared a little clip of how, you know, of my point of view from the canoe and the river and the nature. We saw some cows on the river. I love seeing cows. I don't know why I brought that up, but there were some lovely cows that we saw. But let's get into one other thing. So there is this cave on this river that I ended up exploring, and I put a video of me exploring it. I actually have a whole length video of exploring this cave. Maybe I'll share that one. I don't really know what to do with it. I don't know how good the quality is. But I was having really fun with this cave experience. The cave, I know at one point, looking at like all the cave formations, I felt like I was just seeing time. I was seeing time in this cave because you know how long it takes to form all these things. And it was just this physical representation of time. And it was also interesting to me still. I kept thinking of reality on all these different levels. On like we're in this cave and stuff. I don't know. I'm losing it. I am losing my train of thought because some of these ideas I think that I was having in the cave were not fully formed. But I was really fascinated with seeing this physical representation of time in the cave. So I think this is a good time to maybe talk to you about time and the experience of time dilation. This is one of the most fascinating effects of psychedelics to me. I'm very fascinated with space, time, and consciousness, and the connection between these three things. Einstein connected the fabric of space and time. I want to connect space, time, and consciousness. There's my cat. Here's my cat. You've never seen him, I don't think. But here he is. Everybody loves a cat, right? Anyway. He's okay. He's okay. He's okay. Okay. Where were we? You're gonna have to work with it. No, but I think the effect of time dilation as experienced on psychedelics, I think it's very predictable. It's measurable. There's pattern to it. It's very distinctive. And it very much highlights the relativity of time. Time is very relative, and the perception of time can be altered very extremely. Now, I think we don't usually think about it because in our everyday perception of time, we may experience slight experiences with the relativity of time. You know, time flies when you're having fun. It drags on when you're somewhere you don't want to be. We've all experienced that to some degree. But there's a very different order of experience that happens with psychedelics. The time dilation experienced is of a different order. It's more than that can be simply, it seems to be more than can be simply explained by just that like change in perception. I don't know how to describe this fully, but it seems like there's something going on with the very fabric of consciousness and time itself, that there's some sort of underlying mechanism that could be studied, that could be observed and understood by studying the patterns of time dilation. Anyway, I'm very fascinated with time. I don't know. What do you guys think about time? I don't know. This is not... What are they gonna do? Arrest me for trying? I wrote something down that was really funny. We actually saw a bunch of, there was a whole bunch of state troopers there. Like the morning after my trip, there was a whole bunch of state troopers. There was a bunch of like weird helicopters and like plane, I don't know. It was really weird. It really played into the whole like acid paranoia. Definitely, I'm not immune to that. But it was kind of funny. I remember at one point having this thought. I said, what are they gonna do? Arrest me for trying? I don't know. Just take that as you will. What are they gonna do? Arrest me for trying? You know, I have been arrested once in my life. I was arrested once for good old possession of marijuana. Yeah, everyone loves it. It's legal now. It very much is legal where I am. So I think it's a kind of funny story. I think that's another part of the story. I told you my life was a story that I wrote for myself, and I couldn't have wrote it better myself. Of course I got arrested for possession. Of course. Just like my buddy Timothy Leary. I was thinking about Timothy Leary a little bit, but I won't get too much into that. Yeah, I don't have too much to tell you. I really enjoyed being on the river. Uh, there was, I didn't bring any music personally, but there was some songs that we would run into other people on the river and they'd be playing music. And I actually kind of had some fun listening to the music choices of other people. There was some really synchronistic songs that played. Yeah, I was just having a really good time. Surprisingly, I really enjoyed seeing the families and being around the families. At one point, we actually knocked this like really young girl, knocked her kayak into our canoe, and she had no idea what she was doing. Uh, but to me, I didn't find any annoyance in it. I found no annoyance in it. I just, it kind of did mess us up in the canoe too. She really messed us up, but I was just like, no worries, no worries, She's just trying her best. She's honestly trying her best. I think that's one of the things that I kind of came to the conclusion of during this trip. And I know I guess this maybe isn't true for most people, but I don't know, to some extent I think it is. That we're really all just trying our best with what we're giving. We're just trying. I'm just trying. I'm trying my best. So I hope it's good enough. Yeah, I think that's mainly the conclusion of this trip report. Like I said, this trip brought up a lot of themes and ideas that I'm going to talk about more deeply in later videos. But that's more or less what happened during my experience. I finally slept that night, of course. I was exhausted, but like I told you, I didn't eat that whole day. Finally woke up that next morning and I had a nice Gatorade and some food, and it was wonderful. But I do actually like fasting. I do think that I wouldn't obviously recommend anything to anybody, but for myself, I do think that there is something to fasting being really good for the body. I think I've heard before, like it allows your cells, I don't know, like it allows kind of like a survival of the fittest thing with your cells. And, the stronger ones get to be renewed. I don't know. I have no idea what I'm talking about, obviously. But yeah, I had a very healing experience. It was a rebirth. That is all I have to say. Feel free to ask me any questions about this or anything psychedelically related and share any of your experiences. Other than that, you all will see me in the next video. Bye.